Picture this. You're in a relationship with an incredibly beautiful woman. She's intelligent, humorous, and commands attention wherever she goes. You're treating her as the royalty she deserves, bringing her flowers, taking her on lavish dates, sending good morning texts every single day. You're being the ideal gentleman your mother taught you to be. Yet here's what's secretly happening. Her interest in you is gradually fading, and you're clueless as to why. What I'm about to share will overturn everything you believe about women and relationships. The uncomfortable reality that 97% of men deny is this: for a woman to truly love, desire, and remain loyal to you, she must never feel fully secure in your affection. She must always feel as though she's striving to deserve your attention. Before you dismiss this video, assuming I'm some manipulative pickup artist, let me clarify exactly what I mean. I'm not advocating cruelty or abuse. I'm referring to comprehending the deep psychological triggers behind female attraction. If you stay with me for the next 15 minutes, I'll unveil the precise psychology explaining why women lose attraction to men who treat them kindly. More importantly, you'll discover how to leverage this knowledge to build deep, enduring attraction that most men only dream about. This will be one of the most significant videos you'll ever see on female psychology. So stay focused. Let's begin with the first fundamental principle. Women are biologically inclined to pursue men with higher survival value than themselves. This isn't a conscious decision. It's deeply embedded in their DNA through millions of years of evolution. Back in our ancestral environment, women who chose men with superior resources, strength, and social status were more likely to survive and raise healthy offspring. The women who fell for the nice guy who brought her flowers every day, their genetic line died out because that nice guy couldn't protect her from the neighboring tribe or provide during harsh winters. This biological programming is called hypergamy, and it's still active in every woman's subconscious mind today. Even though we live in modern times with safety nets and grocery stores, her brain is still operating on ancient software. When a woman perceives that a man's value is lower than or equal to her own, her attraction circuitry literally shuts down. For hundreds of thousands of years, women had to be extremely selective about their mating choices because pregnancy made them vulnerable for 9 months, and raising children required massive resources. A woman who chose poorly could literally die along with her offspring. This created an intense selection pressure for women to be attracted only to men who demonstrated superior genetics and resources. These ancient programs are still running in the background of every interaction you have with women. When you act needy, desperate, or overly accommodating, you're sending signals that would have indicated weakness and poor survival prospects to our ancestors. Her subconscious receives these signals and responds by reducing attraction. This brings us to the concept of sexual market value, or SMV. Think of dating like a marketplace where everyone has a certain value based on their attractiveness, resources, personality, and social status. The cruel reality is that women are only genuinely attracted to men whose SMV they perceive as higher than their own. Here's where most guys get it completely wrong. They think SMV is about your job, your car, your muscles, or your height. While these factors matter, they're not the primary drivers of attraction. A woman's perception of your SMV is determined much more by how you carry yourself, how you interact with her, and most importantly, how much you seem to need her validation. Let me give you a real example. I once knew a guy who was a successful lawyer, drove a BMW, and was in great shape. He would wine and dine women at expensive restaurants, shower them with compliments, and make himself available whenever they called. Despite having all the external markers of high value, women would consistently lose interest in him after a few weeks. Compare that to another guy I knew who was a bartender, lived in a studio apartment, but had an abundance mindset. He would take women to casual coffee shops, playfully tease them, and never seemed fazed if they didn't respond to his texts immediately. Women would become obsessed with him, constantly trying to win his approval and attention. The difference? The second guy understood that perceived value is more powerful than actual value. He carried himself like a man with options, while the first guy's behavior screamed, "Please don't leave me." Women are constantly scanning for social cues about your value relative to other men. They're looking at how you handle rejection, how you respond to their tests, how you carry yourself in social situations. These behavioral cues matter more than your bank account or your biceps. Here's the second golden rule. The less certain a woman is about your interest level, the more mental energy she invests in thinking about you. This is basic psychology. We value what we're uncertain about and take for granted what we're sure of. When you immediately show your hand by being overly available, constantly texting, and making it obvious that you're completely smitten, you remove all mystery and challenge from the equation. She no longer has to work for your attention because you're freely giving it away. But when you maintain some level of uncertainty about your feelings, something magical happens. Her mind starts racing with questions. Does he like me? Why didn't he text me back? What is he doing right now? This mental occupation is the foundation of attraction. Let me paint you a picture of how this works in practice. You meet a woman at a social event, have a great conversation, and exchange numbers. The typical guy would text her the next day saying something like, "Hey, I had such an amazing time talking to you last night. You're incredible. When can I see you again?" The guy who understands interest concealment waits 3 days, then sends a simple text. Coffee Tuesday at 3. No excessive enthusiasm, no validation, just a clear invitation that demonstrates he's interested but not desperate. Here's the psychological principle at work. Humans are naturally drawn to intermittent reinforcement. When we receive consistent, predictable rewards, we quickly adapt and lose interest. But when rewards are unpredictable, we become psychologically hooked. Your attention operates on the same principle. When you give it consistently and predictably, she adapts to it and loses interest. When you give it intermittently and unpredictably, she becomes psychologically hooked on getting more of it. Think of your attention and approval as a currency. Like any currency, its value is determined by scarcity. When you give your validation too freely, it becomes worthless. When you make it something that must be earned, it becomes precious. Most men make the fatal mistake of front-loading all their validation. They compliment her constantly, agree with everything she says, and make it clear that she's the most amazing woman they've ever met. What they don't realize is that they just spent their entire emotional budget in the first week. Women are incredibly skilled at reading your level of investment through your behavior. She doesn't need you to say, "I love you." She can see it in how quickly you respond to her texts, how you light up when she walks into the room, how you rearrange your schedule to accommodate her whims. Here's what you need to understand. Women want to feel special, but they want to earn that feeling. When you give it away for free, it loses all meaning. When she has to work for your approval, suddenly it becomes worth something. I know a guy who was dating a model, absolutely stunning woman who was used to men falling over themselves to please her. Instead of showering her with compliments about her looks like every other guy, he would occasionally acknowledge her intelligence when she said something insightful or praise her sense of humor when she made him laugh. The key was that his validation was conditional on her behavior, not just her existence. She had to earn his approval through her actions, which made it infinitely more valuable than the empty compliments she received from other men. One of the fastest ways to destroy attraction is to become predictable. When she knows exactly how you'll respond to everything she does, when she can predict your schedule down to the minute, when you become a known quantity, her interest will inevitably fade. This is why so many relationships start passionate and exciting, but gradually become boring and routine. The man, in his effort to be a good boyfriend, becomes utterly predictable. He calls at the same time every day, takes her to the same types of places, and responds to her the same way every time. Predictability signals to her subconscious that she has completely figured you out, which means she no longer needs to invest mental energy in understanding you. And when she stops investing mental energy in you, she stops feeling attracted to you. This is why the bad boy stereotype is so powerful. It's not that women are attracted to men who treat them poorly. They're attracted to men who are unpredictable, who keep them guessing, who don't follow the script of what a typical guy would do. Here's something that will blow your mind. Women are constantly testing your interest level, not your competency. Most men think women are testing to see if they're man enough, or if they can handle her attitude, but that's not what's happening at all. She's testing to see how much you like her. Every time she acts a little cold, every time she mentions another guy, every time she seems unimpressed with something you did, she's gauging your reaction to see if you'll chase her validation. When you fail these tests by immediately trying to win her approval back, you're essentially telling her, "I like you more than you like me." And once she knows that, the power dynamic shifts permanently in her favor. Let me break down some specific examples. The comparison test. She mentions how attractive another man is or talks about an ex-boyfriend. The failed response is to get jealous or try to compete. The correct response is to be genuinely unbothered and maybe even agree with her. The availability test. She suggests plans and then cancels at the last minute. The failed response is to immediately try to reschedule or express disappointment. The correct response is to say no problem and make other plans. The attitude test. She gives you attitude or acts cold. The failed response is to ask what's wrong or try to cheer her up. The correct response is to mirror her energy and be equally cold until she corrects her behavior. These tests aren't conscious manipulations, they're unconscious behaviors driven by her need to assess your value. When you consistently pass these tests by remaining unbothered and maintaining your frame, you signal that you're not desperate for her approval. When a woman perceives that a man's value is lower than her own, her body literally starts to reject him on a biological level. This isn't conscious, it's happening in her subconscious mind. Her brain starts sending signals that this man is not genetically superior enough to be worth reproducing with. This manifests as a loss of sexual desire, increased irritability around him, and a general feeling that something is off about the relationship. This is why so many women in relationships stop being intimate with their partners. It's not that they don't love them, it's that their biology is telling them not to reproduce with someone they perceive as weak or inferior. Her subconscious thinks that you became weak, that you can't stand up to her, therefore you can't stand up for her. Women are survival creatures, and when she looks at you, you're now a bad bet for her survival. Understanding this can be painful, but it's also liberating. When you realize that her loss of interest isn't personal, it's biological, you can start to make the changes necessary to reactivate her attraction. Here's a fascinating psychological phenomenon. When a woman is uncertain about your interest level, she switches from covert to overt communication. Let me explain what this means. Normally, women communicate covertly, meaning they hint at what they want, rather than stating it directly. She might say, "I'm cold," instead of, "Can you give me your jacket?" Or, "I'm hungry," instead of, "Let's go eat." But when she's worried about losing you, she switches to overt communication. She starts being more direct, more affectionate, more obvious about her feelings. She'll text you things like, "I miss you so much," or "I can't wait to see you tonight." This shift happens because her instincts are telling her that you might be higher value than she initially thought, and she needs to make sure she doesn't lose you to another woman. When a woman really likes a guy, she will return texts on time, call you back, always check in how your day is going, and genuinely do things to make you feel like she likes you. She switches to overt communication because hypergamy can't stand to lose one. Here's where most dating advice gets it completely wrong. They tell you to hit the gym, make more money, dress better, and develop more skills. While these things can help, they're missing the fundamental point. You can be the most successful, attractive, well-dressed man in the world, but if you display low V-value behaviors, she'll still lose interest. I've seen millionaires get dumped by women who work at coffee shops because they didn't understand these psychological principles. Conversely, I've seen average guys with average jobs keep beautiful women completely obsessed with them because they understood how to maintain the proper psychological dynamic. External improvements might get you in the door, but psychological positioning is what keeps her interested long-term. Self-improvement is not the answer. Passing the interest tests is the answer. Whether you make $50,000 or $500,000 a year doesn't matter, because revealing interest reveals your sexual market value. Revealing your interest reveals what type of girl you're used to getting. This is probably the most counterintuitive part of female psychology. Women consistently choose men who treat them worse over men who treat them better. This isn't because they enjoy being mistreated, it's because poor treatment often signals higher value. When a man is willing to risk losing a woman by not prioritizing her every need, it suggests that he has other options. When he's not constantly seeking her approval, it implies that he doesn't need her validation to feel good about himself. These are both indicators of high value. The nice guy, on the other hand, signals through his behavior that he's grateful just to be with her. He's so accommodating, so eager to please, so afraid of losing her, that he communicates low value in every interaction. This is why women often stay with guys who treat them poorly. She has something to look up to, and this is why women leave men who treat them well. If you treat a woman well, rest assured she's going to leave you in due time. All women will leave men who treat them well. The more dates you try to take her on, the more vacations you suggest. The more calls and texts you give, the more she goes, "He really likes me. How nice. You know what? I really don't like him." Women don't fall in love with men. They fall in love with how men make them feel about themselves. When you make her feel like she's the prize, like she's doing you a favor by being with you, she feels powerful but not attracted. But when you make her feel like she has to earn your affection, like she's lucky to have your attention, she feels challenged and excited. This emotional state is what creates the deep obsessive attraction that leads to genuine love. Women are led by their emotions. If her emotions are signaling, text this man, you like him, that girl is going to text you. If her emotions are signaling, he's low value, I don't like him anymore, she pulls back. The key is to make her feel like she's constantly reaching upward to deserve your attention, but never making her feel like she can't reach it. It's a delicate balance between challenge and hope. The most attractive quality a man can have is genuine abundance. The feeling that he has multiple options and doesn't need any one woman to feel complete. This isn't about actually having multiple women. It's about the mental state of not being needy or desperate. When you have abundance, you naturally do all the right things. You don't chase, you don't overinvest. You don't sacrifice your dignity for her attention. You treat her well because you want to, not because you're afraid of losing her. This mindset is incredibly attractive because it's so rare. Most men are operating from scarcity. They're so grateful to have female attention that they'll do anything to keep it. The man with abundance is selective about who gets his time and energy. You containing your interest makes you the bad boy, makes you the player without even trying to be. You not replying to 1 or 2 text messages makes you attractive. You don't have to be out doing crazy things. There are subtle tweaks in your behavior that position you as a high V-value guy. Women are biologically attracted to men who can lead, make decisions, and take responsibility. When you constantly seek her approval or ask her to make decisions, you're failing to fulfill this basic masculine role. Masculine leadership doesn't mean being controlling or domineering. It means being decisive, confident, and willing to take charge when necessary. It means having a vision for your life and inviting her to join you rather than centering your life around her preferences. For example, instead of asking, "What do you want to do tonight?" try, "We're going to try that new Italian place downtown." Instead of, "Is this okay with you?" try, "This is what we're doing." You're not being demanding, you're being decisive. When you take charge and make decisions confidently, you're giving her the gift of being able to relax and trust your judgment. This is what true masculine leadership looks like. In any relationship, whoever is investing more emotional energy has less power. Investment can be measured in many ways. Who initiates contact more often? Who makes more effort to see the other person? Who compromises more? Who shows more emotional vulnerability? The person who consistently invests more will eventually lose attraction from the other person. This is a fundamental law of human psychology that applies to all relationships. This doesn't mean you should never invest or show care. It means you should be strategic about when and how you invest. Let her invest in you first, then match her investment level. Don't be the one who's always reaching out, always making plans, always compromising. When the investment is balanced, both people feel valued and respected. When it's imbalanced, the lower investing person loses respect for the higher investing person. Frame control is perhaps the most important skill you can develop for maintaining attraction. Your frame is your perspective on reality, how you see yourself, the relationship, and the world around you. Women are constantly testing your frame to see if you'll abandon your perspective to please her. When you consistently maintain your frame, it signals that you're a strong, confident man who knows his own value. The man with strong frame control doesn't need to argue or defend his position. He simply maintains his perspective with quiet confidence, knowing that she's testing him to see if he's strong enough to lead. This isn't about being stubborn or inflexible. It's about having a clear sense of who you are and what you stand for, and not compromising that to gain her approval. The uncomfortable reality is that love and attraction operate on different principles. Love is about care, compatibility, and commitment. Attraction is about challenge, uncertainty, and the feeling of reaching upward. Most men focus only on love, being caring, supportive, and committed. But without attraction, love means nothing. She might care about you, but she won't desire you. She might stay with you out of obligation, but she won't be passionate about you. The men who create lasting, passionate relationships are the ones who understand how to maintain both love and attraction. They're caring and supportive, but they're also challenging and unpredictable. They're committed, but they're not needy. Remember, this isn't about being cruel or manipulative. It's about understanding the psychological mechanisms that drive female attraction and working with them instead of against them. The choice is yours. You can continue operating from the nice guy playbook and wonder why women keep losing interest. Or you can embrace these uncomfortable truths and start creating the passionate, devoted relationships you deserve. Stop trying to win her over and start being the kind of man she feels lucky to have won over. The difference will transform not just your dating life, but your entire relationship with women. This is the psychology of female attraction in its purest form. Use it wisely and watch as everything changes.